These are our 15-minute webinar, our micro webinar series. So I'm going to jump right in. And today, this is our fourth installment, and we're going to be talking all about paid digital, specifically how you can use paid digital to warm prospects with digital ads. And so before we get into that conversation, I want to talk a little bit about First Name and who we are. So First Name is complete, personalized digital fundraising. What does that mean? Well, we're a one-stop shop for all things digital fundraising. So if you're looking for a technology solution, we've got a giving day platform. We have causes and crowdfunding as well. But if you're also finding that traditional outreach and methods of outreach are not quite cutting it for you anymore, we've also got some innovative ways to cut through the noise and get your prospects' attention, like paid digital, which we'll be talking about today, our digital development officer program, and our student engagement team as well. And all of this is really designed to help you do digital better. And so before we jump into a little bit about digital warming and how all of that works with paid digital, I want to give a little bit of context in terms of where we are at the current digital landscape. So it's probably not a surprise to anybody, especially in this remote environment, that we find social media usage continues to be on the rise. So according to Pew Research, 72% of adults use at least one social media site. So it could be Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. 72% are using at least one of those. And you can see on this graphic, on this slide, that not only are they using them, but they're checking in frequently. They're checking in daily. You can see if you're a Facebook user, about 70% of users are checking in on a daily basis. You can see the stats for the rest of the ones there as well. So bottom line, your prospects, your audience, your future donors, they're all online currently. And we know you need to be active on social, but organic reach just continues to decline, especially if you look back at the past couple of years and you take a look at your posts and look at those insights and metrics attached to them. We can see that reach only is reaching a sliver of your audience, of your page followers, of your account followers. Paid digital gives us the opportunity to rise above the noise there. And so we'll talk a little bit about potential benefits when it comes to paid digital and why you should be considering it. So number one, it helps you cut through the noise, like I just mentioned, but it's an extremely targeted approach for what you're doing. Paid digital, more than any other tactic, is going to get your content seen by your audience. And so there are a lot of ways that you can target your audience that make paid digital a great investment. You can do this by interest. So for example, if you took a look at everybody who made a gift online, that's a great audience to segment and target by interest. Also, maybe you want to target lie bunts or side bunts, something of that nature. You can segment and deliver content specifically to that audience. You can also do this when it comes to behavior. And this is where we get into some of the remarketing or retargeting campaigns. Probably the most obvious example is somebody visits your website, but they didn't actually make a gift. They didn't convert into a donor. We knew they showed interest because they actually visited the website, but they didn't convert and do that key action. You can retarget and segment and deliver content directly to that audience. It's a fantastic complement to some traditional channels mentioned at the top of this webinar. Some of the traditional outreach channels just are not reaching your audience like they used to. Thinking about direct mail, email even, and we just talked about organic social as well. So paid digital can help in that respect as well. And also, it's the great point of growing smarter over time. There's a ton of digital data points out there. And the great thing about paid digital is there are tools that you can put in place to help optimize your future ad spend. So Facebook Pixel, for example, if you have this installed on your site, what this does is when you set a Facebook or an Instagram ad campaign, you set an objective. And so if you're setting the objective at link clicks, for example, Facebook is going to serve that up to your audience who are most likely to click on that link. But you can also do this with conversions. Another word for conversion, donation. So if you set up a campaign optimized for people who make a donation, Facebook Pixel is going to be able to take all these data points in as they serve this ad up and see which audiences are converting into donors and which ones are not. So the next time you set that campaign up, you've got all of those data points within that Facebook Pixel, and you're going to be able to spend your money smarter. So that's a little bit of context. Let's talk a little bit about how we can put these plans into action. So paid digital, I feel like, is one of those things where a lot of organizations have dipped a toe in the water, but they're afraid to take that next step. And we see this really being used sparingly and sporadically. Often, if you're approaching your calendar year-end campaign, you'll sketch out direct mailer drops this date. We're going to follow it up with an email, so on and so forth. And it's usually an afterthought to say, oh yeah, and let's make sure we schedule something, put an ad up as part of this plan. Often it's an afterthought. And what happens is we end up asking an audience who's at the top of our funnel to perform a bottom of the funnel action. So at First Name, we have a different approach. We believe that a new approach is needed for paid digital. And we believe that paid digital deserves a larger seat at the table, and it should be part of every nonprofit's digital marketing strategy. And our approach is to take a journey-based approach to this work. And so when we talk about that journey-based approach, you can see on this slide, we've got our journey framework pictured. And this is really all about answering the question, what steps are needed to go from prospective donor to committed supporter? And how can we set this up to put this in action? So when we apply this donor journey framework, what we're doing is we're digitally warming our audience, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we have primed them, and ultimately we'll be able to convert them into donors. So you can see our donor journey framework pictured again here. There's 5 stages to this. We have awareness, consideration, and intent. This is really the digital warming stages of our donor journey. And then obviously conversion is when we're asking for that key action to take place, and all important stewardship, because we want to make sure when somebody becomes a donor, we don't lose them. We want them back on that road to retention right away. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about these first 3 stages in our donor journey framework. And when you set up this paid digital campaign to take audiences through each stage, and that's what it's all designed to do, is to take them from awareness to consideration to intent, ultimately to conversion as well. Video, I'll just mention, is a fantastic medium for these paid ads. It's a great way to stretch your spend. You can get video views through plays, for example, for very inexpensive costs when it compares to something like link clicks or conversions. And so for these first 3 stages, video is a fantastic medium. And so paid digital really means, again, just to reinforce this, your audience is continuing to see the messages you're putting out through these stages, and you're continuing to let that sink in. These stages, again, are where we're digitally warming our audience, but the call to action right here is to not make a gift. Now, if somebody wants to make a gift, we're not going to stop them, but it's not the primary call to action. Instead, we want to build out for each one of these stages: awareness, consideration, and intent, key messaging, creative, and copy that's designed to introduce the case for support and build on it for each successive stage. This is a great opportunity to embrace storytelling. And so when we think about these stages, when it comes to paid digital and setting campaigns up, what exactly are we trying to ask the audience in these stages? Well, when it comes to the awareness stage, we want to come to a mutual understanding with our audience here. Again, we're not asking them to make that gift. Instead, we're putting out, this is what we're setting out to do. We're trying to raise money for X, Y, and Z. And here's how you can be a part of this. So there's a lot of education involved. We're making them aware of what the ask is going to be in the future. We're really setting that stage. When we get down to consideration, we want the audience to be able to ask themselves questions, not yet convincing them to make a gift. We're more like planting seeds in their mind, speaking to the why. Why is this important? Why now? Why are you asking for money now? And why is my participation overall important in helping you achieve this? And then finally, we want to drive it home with the intent stage. Very impact focused stage here. Your organization is a cause, and you are solving problems with philanthropy every day. This is the chance for you to talk about the problems you're solving. And most importantly, going back to that embracing storytelling point, focus on your differentiators. And that's the people who are impacted positively by philanthropy that your organization, the funds they are raising, tell their stories and keep that focus on the individual. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to go into that conversion and stewardship stage. Now, obviously, we've done a lot of great work with our paid digital campaigns, integrated as part of our multi-channel strategy for those first 3 stages. Now, this is where we want to capitalize off of all that good work. And the call to action, not surprisingly, in the conversion stage, make a gift. Now, there's some things to be wary about here. I talked a little bit about Facebook Pixel and optimizing your campaign. Well, one of the objectives for a lot of the different advertising platforms out there is to drive traffic to your website. It probably makes sense. Somebody sees your ad, they click, they make a gift. But often the path is not that linear. So when we ask people to when we ask these ad platforms to optimize for clicks, the platforms are just serving that ad up to people who are most likely to click on an ad, not necessarily the people who are most likely to make a gift. And so that's where, again, want to have things like Facebook Pixel installed on site so we can really measure the conversions that our ads are bringing in and spend that money smarter in the future. Now, there's a lot of data that's going to be at our disposal from the great work that happened awareness, consideration, intent stages. And this is where remarketing can be really powerful. And so if we know that people engaged with our ad content before, especially watching video views, for example, we know that A, they're active on those platforms because they got served those ads, and B, they responded to it in some way, shape, or form. So we want to be able to leverage that data and remarket to these audiences with an ask, because we're doing it in a medium and in a channel that's familiar to that audience. And finally, when we hit that stewardship stage, we want to mitigate churn and get immediate stewardship, personalized when possible, and get people back on that road to retention. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to take a look in the chat and see if we have any questions. I see a couple questions in here now. So question number 1, what type of budget should I be considering when it comes to paid ads? It's a great question. I think I'll start by saying it is possible to probably spend too little. $10, $20, $50 is really not going to get you the results you might be looking for, because it takes a while for these ads to be served up. So if we want ads to be successful, we're going to need to set them up for a longer period of time than just 1, 2, or 3 days. If you think about this, if I don't log into my Facebook account, for example, in a 3-day stretch, I have no opportunity to see that ad. So if we extend the timeline to a week or even more, that gives us a greater opportunity to reach a much wider audience that we're targeting. And so that goes hand in hand with the budget, for example. So I'd suggest really taking a look at how paid digital can complement some campaigns that you have already going on. So if you have a giving day plan, for example, calendar year end appeal, like I mentioned earlier in this talk, something of that nature, maybe a fiscal year end appeal, put a couple $100s of ad spend towards the same audiences you're targeting with these traditional channels. And really what you're going to do is you're going to learn how much it's cost to get the types of actions that you want. But you can't get those actions without having an adequate budget in place. So it's a great question. I've got another question in here. Let's see. Where should I be advertising? Is there such a thing as advertising on too many platforms? Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc. Yeah, another great question, and kind of goes hand in hand to that budgetary question that we just had. But it is possible to spread yourself too thin. I would highly suggest focusing on one platform to start and expanding from there. And so if you're going to start with a platform, I would recommend starting with Facebook and Instagram. That is, the largest advertising platform out there. Again, previous graphic from Pew Research. We know people are on Facebook and Instagram. We know they're on there frequently. So your audience is there already. And also, this is a great way to, again, have an efficient spend. So we get in the habit of, if you're on 5 different platforms and you have a $500 budget, it's going to be much less effective than if you're on one platform with that $500 budget, and you're going to be able to find what's really working for you. So great questions. I appreciate you throwing those into the chat for me. And looks like we are close up here on time. So I just want to mention again, paid digital really is all about getting the content that you are working so hard to produce seen by more of your audience to drive more key actions. And it's going to be able to do that more than any other channel out there. And we can help with this. So if you're interested in anything we've talked about during this presentation, please get in touch with me. You can reach out to me at zach@firstname.co. And we also have accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And there's our website as well, firstname.co. Check the website out. We have new blog content posted every week. So a lot of great content out there. And we actually have a couple articles on the donor journey framework that we've discussed during this presentation. So give those a read and then let me know what you think about those as well.